All right. I think I'm live. I couldn't hear the.
That was an amazing intro where it just kept breaking up. It was cool.
Yeah, what the? Okay, so you heard it too. What the hell is that?
I don't know. Maybe we're coming to the end of the road here and we've said too much.
Well, assuming we can be heard, I'll get some feedback here from station manager. But this is the show, and I'm the host, Jake Anderson, and we got DB, the extravagant co-host, with me, and yeah, that was weird. It was all glitchy and whatnot. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. I mean, everything seems like it's on the verge of something changing, but I don't think being in America, to be totally honest with you, we have a lot to worry about compared to like 99% of people. So I'm not horrified, and I don't think anybody listening, if you're here, you should be either. I mean, we got a lot of potential. That's all I can say. There's other countries in the world right now where, like Venezuela, there's people that are literally dying from no food, and we don't seem to have that issue en masse. So things could be a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah, it sure can, and it's always good to, remind ourselves that, if you have shelter and food and clothing and are, not sick, that, you got a pretty good deal.
And I'm not saying that we should be happy with that, and we shouldn't strive for everybody to have everything that they'd want, because we have the ability to do that right now without ruining the world or the environment. It's just people don't want to share because they're on power trips generationally and it's running through their blood. So once we get past all that bullshit and evolve into a higher sphere of human consciousness, we can all have a great life. Until then, we're just going to keep fighting like petulant children, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it will happen, but I fear, unfortunately, that it's going to take longer than we would like.
We may not see it, Jake, but maybe our kids, I don't know.
Yeah, there are just some very unresolved issues with human biological consciousness.
There's still racism, dude. Yeah. Think about that. I mean, me and you have friends of all shapes and sizes and shades, and there's people out there that don't have a friend that looks different than them.
It's one of the biggest things I notice now in my quest for conspiracy theories, because it's my favorite thing, and I'm always going to very strange fringe forums. And what I'm noticing is that unfortunately the conspiracy theory realm is now just tainted with a lot of racism, and it sucks.
And there's things like Black Twitter, dude, where there's racist black people. There's racists of all kinds out there. And let me just tell you, the one thing they all share in common is they are ignorant motherfuckers.
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, I think it's wrong to hate someone you don't know based on physical qualities. I mean, I just think that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to get into a debate on qualifying different kinds of racism, because it's not.
It's just sad that at this point in human history that we know of so far, that we haven't come past that. In fact, in a country like this, where supposedly there's potential for you to actually have representation, that we still have people segregating each other. I'm seeing it happening more now than when I was growing up. People are using things like safe spaces, which are not. Safe spaces are just echo chambers, okay? That's all they are. They're not the real world.
And that's what people want right now, is they want their echo chambers.
That's how wars start. Wars start when talking stops.
I agree. Well, I mean, I think that we're on a real dangerous trajectory right now, a very real prospect of some kind of civil war, because the breakdown in dialogue. I mean, it used to be, look, the Democrats and Republicans have always hated each other. I mean, this has been going on for decades, if not centuries. The rhetoric has always been bad, but I'm not sure I've ever heard it get to the point where one side literally thinks the other side is like a terrorist cabal that is going to destroy the country. I mean that's a new wrinkle in partisan politics. That I mean, you have people on the new right that literally think the left constitutes the entirety of the deep state, and you have people on the left thinking that people on the right are part of some Russian conspiracy that is seeking to undermine democracy. I mean, these are very hard drawn lines that could very easily set off a major incident. And I don't want to go into the scenario I foresee happening, but I'll just say that if there is an attempt, if we see an attempt to remove Trump from the White House in any way, shape, or form, I could see there being add to that some kind of terrorist attack that sets people into martial law, and I can see things going very wrong very quickly because the rhetoric is so heated right now.
Jake, why do you think that all of these major incidents seem to take place on coastal cities like the Florida shooting? Yeah, there's Littleton, but these are generally speaking pretty much liberal strongholds. Not Florida. Florida's red. But they're always on the coasts, man. They try to weaken the coasts. They try to take that Second Amendment away from coastal cities, and it smells of a long game, dude. It does. We understand that there's not going to be a global hierarchy if there's America, because America is the only country in the world where the average citizen can be armed, therefore can be on equal footing with, theoretically, the police and the military. All right? So you have the only country in the world with that stalemate. Every other country in the world you go to, if you think cops are bad here, they do it over there 10 times as much, and then the bodies just disappear. You never even hear about it. All right? That's the truth of it. So this is the only country in the world where you can possibly be on an equal footing, or try to be, when they try to kill you, take your rights away. All right? Every other country in the world, they've already been cowed. And it's provable. Just go visit them, go everywhere. Go to Italy and see how the cops are armed. They all have Beretta machine guns. So it's different here, and it's the last bastion of something other than the government completely controlling your life. And if you want to see the way that they want the world to run, it's China and it's North Korea. It's a blend of that. It's like a vassal feudal state. That's what they want. That's what they're pushing us back into, and that's what the idiots getting microchipped right now are kind of, they're heralding, dude. They're bringing that in. They don't need to control you with the force of a gun. They'll just turn off your bank account.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of interesting points. I mean, there are some interesting, distinctions between what's going on in the U.S. and what's going on. I certainly can see an argument as to other countries having a more pronounced police state, but we do have significantly more police violence here, and we have significantly more violence in general in terms of homicide in the population than in any other country.
I know that with
multiple.
I'd argue for the police, though, at least aspect of it, that in many countries that there's far more police violence against citizenry, and it's just never reported. I hold to that.
That's possible, but
I hold to that as truth when I visited Latin America, when people say, "Oh, the cops came and took my son, and he never came back." You know what I mean? No.
And
that happens all the time.
In some countries, that's definitely the case, but it's hard to believe that it's all the countries.
No, but I'm just saying it's a huge. There's a huge portion where, any third world country, any considered third world country, the cops are killing way more people than per capita they are here.
Of course, and there's some of those countries are so corrupt that people are scared to even tweet about it. They're
Well, in
not.
the UK, you can't even criticize them or you go to jail. So talk about people talk about the UK like it's some bastion of decorum. But if you just so much as insult someone there, you go to jail. Yet if you stab someone there, nothing happens.
Yeah, it's oh man, I wish I could understand what's going on right now, but it really seems like we're spiraling very quickly
Well,
into
one group wanted to control like the world through financial means, like a blackmail system, and another group that was their muscle said, "Well, no, we that's stupid. We're going to take control." What we're seeing, because the only country in the world that really matters is us because of the military. I mean, what I mean
so
to
you're
say is
talking
that,
about the banker class versus the military class.
yeah, and what I mean to say by that is that we're so leaps and bounds ahead of everyone with military tech that whoever controls the military tech we have controls the world. They're the de facto ruler of the world.
That's true.
So
I mean, it is pretty commonly agreed right now that there is a race between China, U.S., and Russia for preeminent AI technology, and the general consensus is that whoever achieves the best AI technology in the next 2 decades is going to be the country on top.
I
Of
think
course,
we're all behind Japan,
that's
and
that's possible.
I think they're using it for a different use, because if there's one country in the world that's seen what total and utter annihilation of a full total war is, it is Japan. They had two cities wiped off the map, and no other country in the world's gone through that. And
Right,
so
sure.
I think they turned all of their power to economics because they knew that if they were able to control our debt, which they do, not China, that they would have our military do their bidding. And this exact same thing happens with Israel, but they control us in a different way, not economically, but probably through blackmail. So that's the smartest thing you can do in this world, is to use our military industrial complex, and actually it plays off Russia's, because I know you know, Jake, that every time we make something, Russia comes up with a counterbalance. So that's kind of how it's working right now, with China providing the labor pool for the world's cheap goods to just keep money moving around. That's really what their function is.
Well, and they have that new economic funnel they're talking about, which is oh god,
The Silk
one.
Road.
It's the new Silk Road. The name of it
Yeah,
is like One Path, One Road. I don't know
right.
some.
One path. Yep.
Yeah, One Path. Yeah, and that's expected to be. I mean, that's basically instead of TPP, we're getting this, which is China's probably would have been China's answer to TPP, which was going to be TPP was basically our economic global answer to China, and it didn't happen. And now we're seeing what was probably going to be their answer to that, but instead, really, it's I've been listening to a lot of commentary about it, and it's so complex, but it's paving the way for kind of a new the next century of Chinese economic
Yeah,
policy.
but it's all perilously held together with a little spit and glue, because they depend on us for coal and for food. So if we ever got in a war, they'd have a massive famine unless they invaded India for their food. And to take their food, they'd have to kill all the Indians. So that would be a genocide. So, you see, the world's all held together by this freakonomics net. And,
Hmm.
we really can't go to war. We can have proxy wars. If we ever go to war, it's the end of the world. And that's when those idiots try to hide in their bunkers. So my only hope is that all these weird earthquakes are all of their bunkers being blown up.
Yeah, world wars. Really that's why I just we disagree on whether a Clinton presidency would have heralded a war against Russia, but I just don't see how any major nation
Well,
state
they
can.
would have instituted the no-fly zone that it's actually kind of seems like it's going to go in anyway, because we can't have a drone bomb their tank and then say it's from self-defense when the tank can't hit the drone that high, and then expect the Russians not to now scramble jets and take out our drones because we're going to take their tanks out. You see, it's now an escalation. So, maybe we're going to end up getting what I think she would have pushed to the forefront already, which is conflict with Russia. But I can only hope, and anybody out there listening, we've gone through what Russia and Trump and Putin, what their arrangement is. We've brushed on it, at least me and Nick have. I don't know if you heard this, Jake, but you understand that the North Pole is melting and that it's accessible, and that there's some oil fields up there that are, enough to power us for the next century, and Russia owns them because Russia developed the first nuclear-powered icebreakers, so they planted their flag. They got it up there, and now it's melting, and we can get oil. Platforms out there. The problem is that they need to be extracted using something called slant drilling, which is what they do for fracking. And ExxonMobil has that patent, and they're the only company in the world that can deep sea like slant drill or frack. So they're the only one that can do it. Russia owns the oil fields. There's conservatively $1 trillion of oil. And the arrangement was that, if Trump was going to get in because he's the ultimate businessman, we're going to get Rex Tillerson in there, and that's going to happen. When those oil fields open up, Secretary of State Tillerson is going to bring over ExxonMobil oil derricks, and we're going to have a marriage of $1 a gallon gas. Can anybody be mad at that?
Which is just, it's just going to delay a revolution in sustainable energy.
I know, dude.
For another 5 days.
Well, the rich people they're already going to be on it. That's the ultimate shit, is that if you can afford the $36,000 for a Tesla right now, and then maybe like the $20,000 to put panels on your roof, you can drive for free, and like that sucks because that's just rich people that can already afford the gas,
Right. Yeah, no, that's I hadn't heard that about the the Arctic oil. That's interesting.
It was just an economic marriage, and it was just you can't say Russia installed Trump. They don't have that kind of power. We can't even make a legitimate color guard work in Russia. You really think Russia's going to make color guards work in a multicultural America? Come on, dude. I mean,
anyone who thinks, Russia, I'm sure, is doing some psyops, just like every major country is doing everywhere. Which is, I'm sure, of course, Russia is engaging in some ideological.
Well, they're trying, but
it's just basic agitprop.
You gotta be stupid to fall for these Macedonian websites, which I know there's a lot of dummies that went and voted and they believed the whatever Trump deplorable, all these, that was the Russian hacking was a bunch of Macedonian dudes buying up Trump websites, pushing out memes and keck crap, and then it became an organic thing here. Because why? Because people were just like so tired of the duopoly, and they saw Trump as like a dark horse. He was just going to be something different. Worst case scenario is he would just suck so bad that the system would totally collapse finally.
Right. Well, no, I think that's why a lot of anarchists ended up embracing Trump, because they wanted to fast track the train wreck,
Well, the system's inherently it's evil in our country. Now, if we took 20% of the military expenditure and siphoned it off to create the real safety net that this country deserves, then it would be a different thing we would be talking about, but then we wouldn't be an empire.
Right. Come on. Realistically, we could spend less on the military, but
Oh yeah, we could cut it in half and be just fine. But it's the graft of the MIC, and that's why they took over in this last election. Because let's put it this way: the bankers were really profitable until 2008. And then they showed they couldn't be trusted, and they're a bunch of dipshits. So the guys with the real power, the guys with the guns, said enough of this bullshit. Now, Obama got in somehow Well, it wasn't really a somehow. It was they
We got
ran
in.
crap against him.
He got in because of Bush. I mean,
Well, yeah.
I mean that's I mean,
But I mean, his second term he won because they ran freaking Romney against him. I mean, they couldn't have picked a less inspired. If they ran Trump against Obama in 2012, I wonder what would have happened.
yeah. I mean, I just don't think there was it. I think it's taken a good 15 years for people to realize some of the power apparatus that's really going on here, and that's why as much as I'm not a Trump fan, but I have really enjoyed some of the transparency we're getting regarding these FISA courts and how this surveillance court works because. If they're doing that on Trump, good Lord. I mean, if they're doing that on like a presidential candidate, a billionaire presidential candidate, who they obviously didn't think there was a chance in hell of winning, to ever have to worry about someone reverse engineering and going back and looking at what they had to do. Imagine what they're doing behind the scenes when people that they know there's no way are going to be able to unveil what they're doing. I mean, it's truly sinister and fucked up what is going on, and it infuriates me. And one of the reasons I had to get off Facebook because I seriously cannot understand why mainstream Democrats do not understand that the reason the Democratic Party is falling out of favor with working class people is because the working class people feel like the government has completely abandoned them behind these like 1984 surveillance policies, while at the same time still screwing us over on the drug war, still screwing us over on free trade. There's the institutions of this country are still crippling working class people, and the Democrats posture themselves as the champion of the working class, but none of their rhetoric ever matches with their policies. And they don't even try anymore, and until they understand that people don't want to be spied on and thrown in prison for marijuana, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. They can't keep doing this bullshit. They can't keep trying to ban kratom while people are overdosing on Vicodin, are trying to regulate cryptocurrency while the banks continue to fuck everyone over and the Fed continues to fuck everyone over, and then question why people are skeptical with the government. And it's just like, it just baffles me.
Speaking of the Fed, dude, the new chairman, I mean, we're seeing a guy getting in who's the richest chairman we've ever had. I mean, by a large margin. And he makes Ben Bernanke look like he has peanuts. So I think we're seeing a complete corporatocracy take over MIC style. Now it's going to be shrouded in patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
And patriotism is not a good word. Nationalism's fine. Nationalism it's okay to have pride in your country. It's where you live. But patriotism is bowing down to a patriarchal power structure kept around through violence. It's the only thing it's got. It doesn't have virtue or anything to sell you other than it'll kill you if you don't do what it tells you to do. So that's the biggest problem we have. Blind patriotism over genuine nationalism and actual wanting to do something positive for your neighbor and fellow man. If we had that would be totally cool. People could be proud to be American if we had a strong military that stayed here, that made us invulnerable to ever being messed with, that didn't spread an empire. I mean, that's our ultimate goal, dude, and that's the only way we survive. We can't have 1,000 military bases. We really shouldn't even have offensive aircraft carriers. They should just go to the Coast Guard. I mean, anything we're doing through force, we can do probably more efficiently through economics, but the problem is then you cannot push all that wealth into a corner. You'd have to actually spread it out so people would do jobs and stuff. And that's the biggest the threat and the problem. This parasitical so-called elite class that rules through murder, dude. That's all they do. They just kill people that get in their way. That's how they stay around. So once people rise up to the fact that that's happening and just stop using these people's companies and products. I mean, we're talking on one right now. I'm on another product on Facebook, and what I'm starting to notice is like we can find alternatives to all these services now. And like I'm just lazy and I need to get off it. We all need to get off these. They're not doing anybody any good at all. And we need to take control away from these people because they're legitimately killing people around the world. They're legitimately making children disappear and doing all kinds of fucking horrible things everywhere. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. And their descendants are still doing it. And they're really close to a point where they don't need any of us listening anymore. So I hope you understand that that means that we're really all close to being in mortal danger. If we don't, these people, it's either them or us, dude. That's what it's down to now.
Well, and there's, technology is going to be a blessing and a curse because on one side, the power to expose some of these crimes it has never been greater with the internet and with hacking and leaks. We've never had the abilities to expose what some of these elites are doing. However, there's also new technology through artificial intelligence. They can essentially create a fake reality. And I mean that quite literally. New AI is able to create video that looks like real video that is fake. And once we get into this new age where people have to literally question a video they're watching and wonder whether it's real or not, these deep fakes, so to speak, once deep fakes become ubiquitous, not just in porn, which is currently where they're at, but all over the place, when we cannot no longer differentiate what's real and what's fake in video, at that point, any power we would have had to expose some of these elites is going to disappear because they'll just be able to say, "Oh, well, that's not real. That's a fake." And so it's.
I'm already to that point with Washington Post and Newsweek, which is I think now defunct or in the process of being dismantled for being basically a front, a CIA front, essentially. So, I mean, if it sounds stupid, it's not true. Like you just read it and you're like, these people are idiots, and there's no sources, and there's only like a trusted person on the inside, and they never give a name. Those are all BS, dude. Those are all NDAA 2012 right in your face, lying to you. And if you're gullible enough to believe it and run with it, so be it. You probably actually think the Russian narrative's true.
It's funny because growing up, we had a subscription to Newsweek, and I read it almost every week. And for some reason, I don't know, maybe it's just in hindsight, I don't feel like it was as fucked up back in the 90s as it is now. I'm sure it actually was, and I just didn't see it. But yeah, we've been having a State Department crafted narrative fed to us through the mainstream news for decades now, and we're only now starting to realize how vast it was, how big the network of Operation Mockingbird became. And I'm sure decades from now, we'll be in shock at how vast it actually was. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that Newsweek's going defunct. I mean, and it's only a matter of time before the Washington Post and the New York Times and all kinds of papers are revealed. Unfortunately, and this is a point that I've been harping on for a while, but as long as you have Trump and his minions being the ones who are hyping it, as long as you have InfoWars and Breitbart and Trump being the ones who are saying, look at this is fake news, the mainstream people will not accept it even if it's true. Which is why we need publications like the Anti-Media, which is why we need publications like The Intercept, who are virulently nonpartisan and independent to fact-check this stuff and to come in as an intermediary, because unfortunately Trump is kind of co-opting this fake news movement, and he's kind of co-opting this deep state rhetoric. And it's making it to where, for most people that might have otherwise bought it, are like, nah, I don't know. Trump's saying it. Sounds, just another attack on the media. And it's a real problem. And I predicted this. I knew as soon as he got elected, this bullshit was going to happen. And sure enough, he is ruining the truth movement in every possible way. And fair or not, because sometimes he's right on stuff. He said, he came out and tweeted Obama was spying on me, which was shocking. And I immediately thought, okay, well, it's probably true. And now we know that it is. But look, even with something like that, where we have pretty much de facto evidence that indeed it did happen, the left is still denying it. They'll never accept it because Trump is saying it. And that's the problem. And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is the two sides. When the two sides hate each other so much that you can no longer declare what an objective fact is, like, that's a problem. Like, I don't see how we can sustain a civilization if we no longer know what constitutes truth or not. I mean,
it's been that way. I mean, that's why Trump was so, he was coined a term that phrase alternative facts. And the truth is that there is no truth. Unless you're seeing it in front of you, and even then sometimes you can't believe your eyes. You really, it's going to be based off of reporting from somebody, and you have to just trust the source. And the problem is that big time corporate media it's been a long time beholden, completely beholden to singular individuals, dude, like Rupert Murdoch, like Richard Branson, like people that own media companies, like the Prince with the Twitter and all this other stuff. It destroys the credibility because they're not open source. So, even anti-media, even Intercept, even other reputable, like you said, nonpartisan sources, they're still human beings that are at the helm. And you can see what happens when a organization like the Young Turds sells out, and you have morons still, consuming basically Democratic light or diet Democrat opinions.
right.
And you have these former burners who are being slowly pulled into the fold of the regular Democrat Party. People that, by the way, that were independents, that thought for themselves, that they've been galvanized by Trump, that they hate everything he stands for whatever reason. And now they're willing to go listen to a guy like a Cory Booker or a Kamala Harris or a Nancy Pelosi for what? These people are all worth $10, $20, $170 million of net worth. They're not as high up the food chain as Trump, but at the same time, they're career politicians with those net worths. So think about that. And how are you going to go from a Trump who you think is corrupt or whatever to someone like Pelosi, who has a $170,000 salary, who's worth $170 million.
Oh, and all you needed to see of Pelosi is her and Schiff single-handedly getting the FISA surveillance bill to pass, extending power. So on one side of their mouth, Pelosi and Schiff are saying that Trump is the most dangerous threat to democracy in history. Then at the same time, they're so beholden to the deep state or military, industrial, whatever you want to call it, that they're shoving down an expansion of these Patriot Act surveillance powers and giving Trump, who they say is this giant threat to democracy, these unprecedented powers that were expanded by Obama and are now being expanded further. Why in God's name would they be doing that if they actually believe he's such a big threat? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. You can't take them at their word anymore. They're so hypocritical. Like, it's seriously unbelievable. And that's why that whole chapter about the memo gate was so hilarious, because literally 2 weeks before that, both Schiff and Pelosi had gone to bat to protect these powers of surveillance, and then it just completely backfired on them and showed that essentially, the Jesus Lord Obama had pretty unethically used surveillance powers during the election and after, and it was probably worse than Watergate. And where probably nothing will happen because of it. But as much as Trump is supposedly against this deep state, I just think he's just rearranging some pieces. And I don't think the deep state can be taken out, man. I just think they have too big of a power apparatus set up. It seems like no matter what, there are these things that cannot be touched in this country. The powers of surveillance cannot be touched. The powers of the military cannot be touched, even when they're corrupt, even when they're just beyond corrupt. There is something holding them together that no elected official can control, and that's a problem. That's an unelected shadow government that's running things.
Yeah, it's been that way for a long time. I mean,
but it's way worse now than it's ever been.
Because it's been a progression. And I mean, think about it, dude. They killed a president on TV, and nobody did anything.
Yeah, they blew his head out on.
They told you you're shit. The guy you love that's making your life better, we just killed him. Yeah, and you're not going to do shit.
The most beloved president almost in history. They blew his brains out on national television. And 50 years later, we still can't even get to the bottom of what actually happened. I mean, that should show you the power of whoever's in control right now.
Well, because they knew that they cowed the American public. Because World War II, 27 million Americans worked for the war machine. A fourth of our entire population in one way, shape, or form was working either in a munitions plant or on the field itself or in some way, shape, or form, okay? So they knew from that they could get us to do anything. So they know. They've done the psychological research, and they've manipulated people down to their genetics, dude. They've created a nation of slaves. I'm telling you, we're all slaves, genetically predispositioned for it. So if you're listening and you're not a slave, you broke the programming. You're the anomaly for America. You're looking around looking at sheeples. That's on purpose. That's what this was created for. That is the colony. That's what we are. That's why when you go to Australia, everyone's a dumb fuck. Because look who started the fucking country. All the dumbass criminals. So it's just how we started, man. It's the genetics. It's our destiny to be this way. We're violent, we're brutish, and maybe we're short-lived, or maybe we can come back. I don't know.
Have you ever seen the movie The Conspiracy?
No.
Okay, you gotta watch this, man. It's a found footage. It's basically a found footage psychological horror movie. But the first 30 minutes of it is basically a dude saying what you're saying, and these two documentary filmmakers wanting to document what he's doing. And then like 30 minutes or 15 minutes into the film, he fucking disappears. And the rest of the movie is them kind of like descending into this like nightmarish cult that of course is, basically the New World Order. And you gotta watch it, man. You'll love it. And I highly recommend the movie The Conspiracy. It's just fun. It's a good movie, but it's also, if you're a conspiracy theory buff, they really did their homework, and it feels very hauntingly realistic. I mean, it really feels like, they add some fictitious elements to it, but there are aspects of it that feel hauntingly real. I mean, the first 20 minutes is like a poem to all of the New World Order 9/11 conspiracy theories, and just kind of ties it all together. Great movie.
I'll have to check it out. It's like that, the movie Network, the homage to the fact that TV and mass media really was the ultimate monarching of the public. And because people, if it's not on the news, there's a segment that won't believe it, no matter what. It doesn't matter what, if it's not in the public consciousness, it's not gonna It's not reality for them, and they can't wrap their mind around the fact that they're lied to control them. Like they're trying to get through.
Yeah,
and
there's a block there. People cannot accept that. It's funny, because I didn't know for sure if you were coming on tonight. So what I was going to do if you weren't on is I was going to talk about like quantum enigma stuff, because I have to do this fucking presentation about.
Go into it, dude, because I want to learn.
No. I'm fine not talking about it, but it's funny because basically it was going to be sort of about how our minds kind of create reality. At the quantum level, reality is kind of an illusion, and yet, what's happened is that our conversation tonight has come basically lapped back around from a different angle onto that same thing, which is that reality is a construct. It's a sociological construct, but it's also, what I was going to say, it's a quantum construct in terms of how our consciousness is basically actively creating reality. But it's also a sociological construct and an ideological socioeconomic construct of people in high places wanting us to believe certain things so that they can continue to profit off of us and keep us as slaves. Because, we're not slaves in a traditional sense, but we are most certainly economic and ideological slaves.
Yeah, this is the biggest problem too. And Marley said, you want to, end your slavery, you have to free your mind, and it does go that way. But there's also the real, true fact in the ground of the world is that everywhere that people don't have a way to protect themselves or means to group together and band together, they're controlled through the needs of their body, through starvation, through torture and killing of their family. We see the worst results of that in, we've broached earlier today, North Korea, Venezuela. Ironically enough, one of the axes of evil that they said was Iran has a pretty high standard of living. Tehran's pretty similar to Denver, and it's a pretty modern city. So we're just constantly lied to, dude. We're constantly lied to and manipulated. In some countries where, people fought in the past violently and tried to revolt and uprise, the U.S. is one, France is another, where they had their revolution. And then you see countries where they never did, like the UK, be completely obliterated culturally to the fact where they're not even what they were 20 years ago. They're a completely different country now. And there's no coming back from that, by the way. You just see that the control matrix is set up everywhere through different means, and they're experimenting. And the people at the top, man, they all worship the same God. They all go to the same clubs. They all have private planes, and they all went to Davos. They all went to the Super Bowl on private planes, because I was here. And they are just trying out which way is going to work best for the end game, which is where all of them are going to control all of us, and we're all going to look the same and think the same and act the same, which is what they're going to make like a cake with ingredients for a prescribed and preconceived world that they already have in their mind.
Well, they have to manufacture this consensus now, because things are about to get so crazy with technology, with artificial intelligence. Things are about to get so out of hand that they have to control us now. They have to screw us into these little shapes now, so that when we could actually change, when the tools are in front of us to evolve, we're going to be too scared to evolve.
There's already a group of people that are. A percentage.
That's the irony, is that they don't really need to work too hard. Humans are pretty content to live in their tribes and not look out the window.
We're not going to. Everything we talk about is a moot point if we're not going to move to a 0-point energy future where we're not worried about survival. This is false and constructed scarcity It's a control grid worldwide. There's not a place in the world right now, not on the North Pole or the South Pole or the Gobi Desert, that we can't airdrop supplies anytime we want, and we can do it cheap. All right, it doesn't. It's not the end of the world to send out a cargo plane anywhere. It's not beyond any country to do that. We can all share. We can all help. We can all keep our cultures and our countries, but just pull together so that everybody in the world. And it's going to require another system, a benevolent one, but we can't grow exponentially on a finite planet. People need to plan their families. They need to have 2, maybe 3 kids, maybe 4. We have to be realistic about it too. We can't have 20 billion people here. We have a carrying capacity, and
well, if we create some colonies on the moon or to Mars,
and we need to do that anyway, just in case.
Right.
It's smart.
Or just even like the movie Elysium, where you just have like a kind of an artificial structure,
bunch of pinwheels.
Yeah, and it's like I think in the future people are going to be fine spending most of their lives in virtual reality anyway. So,
well,
God, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm saying
I'm okay with that for work.
Even right now, most people are quite content to sit on Facebook all day. Imagine when you have a virtual reality interface in which all of their desires and needs can be met. I mean,
well, they'll atrophy. It'll become like that movie Surrogate. So I know what you're saying, though, Jake. There's going to be people like you're saying now. There's already people that are doing that. So you're right.
It's only going to get worse, man.
But it'll only get better in some ways because, I mean, yeah, a couple people will tune out, and they'll probably be increasingly irrelevant because if they're completely stuck in VR, I'm not gonna live in VR. I'm gonna want to live in the real world, and a lot of people are gonna be like that. And the real world is gonna probably get better. I mean, if suppressed tech is released and illnesses start fading away and lifespans increase, and you don't really get old and feel old, you just maybe like keel over at 150.
It's all going to happen. I mean, it's going to be a class thing.
Real life might be just as good as VR. I mean, better. VR is, and Facebook and anything non-personal is just, it's a mask for you to be personal. Do you know what I mean by that, Jake?
Yeah, but I mean, look, look, when there's real, legit virtual reality, I'm going to be on that for sure. That'll be cool. I'm not going to spend
for a while. It'll be cool.
Spend all my time in it, but I'll be on there. Facebook bores the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's a.
What VR will be great for, Jake, is telecommuting to a job where you don't need to be there in reality, but it's been traditional to show up to an office. You know what I mean?
It's going to change everything. It's going to make. Yeah. It's going to change the definition of presence and location. It's going.
I hate driving to meet people. I want to meet them in VR.
Yeah. No, and it'll probably reduce homicide rates. I mean, a lot of. Technology is always both good and bad. It's not going to be all of one or the other. It's going to be both.
You got to blend everything. You got to have gray areas because you can't be to the extreme of either way. We see you hit right on it at the beginning when you said people on the far left think the people on the far right are in a Russian conspiracy, and the other way around, that they're the true commies and they're like taking out our liberties. And the truth is they really are in the middle. I mean, if you really talk to somebody, their whole like extremism will melt away when it's person to person. I'm talking about most people. Yeah. Like, you may think you have a strong opinion, and then you're going to meet that person that changes your opinion to more like in the middle, like more of a centrist, because you may say, you know what, I'm tired of freaking people mooching off my check and my taxes and getting welfare and Section 8 and blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to meet that person who was working like at a good job and got cancer and had kids and didn't have the father there anymore, and then went to Section 8.
Yeah.
To like survive.
Yeah.
And it wasn't their fault.
It's just wrong to categorize people. There's too many different people with too many different life situations. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the key is just like, we're at a point where we're like, the technological mastery that the world has at its disposal has the ability now at this minute to elevate us over our animalistic instincts, which were important when there was scarcity. And maybe if there's another ice age, that the cavemen are going to be the ones that survive, the brutal people. But what I'm saying is at this time in history right now, that we're in a window where the suffering of the world is a waste of our resources, because there's a kid in Africa who is going to die tomorrow from not eating. And if he had the calories, he would have become the inventor that created the desalinization plant for Africa so they could grow the food that he needed to live.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like, we're at that butterfly effect point.
I am so excited for the Black Panther movie because it's a visualization of a futuristic society in which Africa had not been colonized and had not gone through slavery. Really, just such a brilliant. I mean, it's definitely there's clearly some virtue messaging, signaling going on in the film. I mean, it's definitely a politically. There's definitely some social justice warrior messaging going on there, but it's still just as a concept,
well, it's a thought. It's
a thought experiment, an alt history, and that's cool. Mixed with, let's be honest. The representation of black people in films has been outrageously horrible, and
because it's American. That's why. Because in Africa it's different, and because African people that move here now have a totally different mindset than African Americans. And it's just, that's what happens, dude. When you have Hollywood portraying things, it skews it all. Like, the way World War II went down with the Nazis wasn't the way they show you. It wasn't. It wasn't that way at all. It's just because we won that's how it's shown. It's like everything you know is bullshit, you know? In 1933, Judea declared war on Germany. Judea. Meaning that it would be like if Islam declared war on the United States tomorrow. Do you really think it would be any different than World War II again? It wouldn't. So I'm just saying, cause and effect, everything is told by the victors in their way, and it's fake, dude. It's just fake.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree in a sense that history is, I mean, this is just an Orwellian principle. History is written by the victors. I mean, that's
what history is.
To a certain extent,
history is the victor's story.
Reality is the message crafted by those who won, and of course, they're going to tell a favorable version of a version of history that is favorable to their messaging.
Like, for instance, Jake, not to go too far into a weird realm with 5 minutes left, but there's always been talk about how the very upper echelon of the Reich had escaped to Antarctica. Okay, there was an expedition, Operation High Jump. Then they dropped two nuclear bombs in 1952 and 53 in the South Pole. Just dropped them. They said they were tests, but they were trying to bomb the caverns or whatever to get the rest of the Reich, and they couldn't penetrate down that deep. So here's what I'm trying to get to. What if sometime in the near future, after there's war trial tribunals and people that people know and love even go away? What if all this happens, all these things happen that people are rumoring and whispering about right now? Like, towards the end of Trump's first term, a lot of people are sitting in prison, or they're dead, or they're missing. And they all of a sudden say, hey, there's these 30 and 40-year-old people that are running the remnants of the Reich, and they're still around. And they want a pardon, and they want to come back to the surface, and they want to be rejoined specifically with the United States because of Operation Paperclip, and they're going to bring their technology with them.
Wow.
What if that comes out? Because what I've been reading and what I've been seeing leads me to believe that Trump might be a paperclip guy, like a son of one, his father, and that everybody in a role of any real importance in our government or in the media or in entertainment is all a paperclip relation.
Man, that is some hardcore conspiracy. I like it. That's cool shit.
Well, and then get this. Here's what's even more so. There's a group trying to stop it, and they're the same group that got us into the war with Germany, right? The banker class.
Right.
And they really don't want this to happen, because once it happens, the paperclip side of things that was the Russian paperclip side is going to join us with Russia and this remnants of the Reich and scuttle the plans for China to be the new power in the new world order.
I love it. Clash of new world orders.
Well,
before we run out of time, real quick, I just want to make sure. DB, are you on Steam it yet?
No.
All right, get on there. We need everyone to get on there because Anti-Media is in the process of trying to migrate platforms from Facebook to Steam it. So if you're a supporter of the site, still click on the articles on Facebook and share them and whatnot. But one way you can really help us is to get on Steam it, create a profile. And, it's part of what, DB, you were talking about, of a more just platform. We need to move away from platforms like Facebook and adopt platforms like Steam it. So quickly, just wanted to throw that in there. Get on Steam it, like Anti-Media. Anyway, so go back to your insane conspiracy theory now.
I'm just saying, it just makes a lot of sense to me with the Denver airport drawing with the little German boy at the end controlling everything. And
that Denver airport, those decals are trippy, man.
These factions were together and they split because one of them started to become not into power, but actually into like serving some dark lord or some shit and becoming all satanic. And that's just what I'm seeing, dude. You can see it everywhere. The devil horns and the triangles and the all-seeing eye bullshit everywhere. These idiots. So, there's a side that's human that wants power and a side that's evil. And they can't be trusted at all. They're just evil.
The Denver airport, if you don't know what we're talking about, Google Denver Airport Illuminati. And I swear to God, that airport has some of the weirdest...
It's an airport built on top of another airport. Read about the 70s when they built another airport underneath it.
Well, there's a cog. It's a cog port. It's basically continuing...
And it has pyramids on the runway, Jake.
It's a continuity of government station where if there's people working underneath it that if something major happened and the government were taken out, they'd take over. So, visit the Denver airport. That's where the Illuminati exists.
Take a flight.
Thanks, DB. Thanks, everyone.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.